Andrew from Sachs, and today we proved that we're prepared to tackle the controversial stuff. We're seeking to answer the question, who does most evil things at work, men or women? Now, what do I mean by evil things? Evil things in organisational psychology research are often called counterproductive work behaviours, and they tend to come in two flavours. Interpersonal, which is things like bullying and harassment, and organisational, and that's things like theft. It's things like not turning up to work when you're not really sick. It's things like ignoring policies or safety rules or all of those kinds of things. And so the question that we're dealing with today is often in the world of psychometrics measurement called integrity testing. And integrity tests actually ask people if they've done these bad things in the past. It may surprise you to know that most people answer that question quite honestly for reasons that I explain in other videos. This is a thing that we call the league ladder of recruitment predictiveness, which is just a summary of decades of research into what does predict whether people are likely to do good or bad stuff at work. But you'll see here that integrity tests are a reasonably accurate predictor of work performance, 0.41 correlation. Now that's not bad because most interviews that aren't properly structured with a competence analysis give you about 0.35, which is worse, and the best structured interviews get you up to about 0.51. If we convert that into a shared variance figure, which could be regarded as a percentage accuracy figure, it means that the best interviews are about 25% accurate. So integrity testing combines very well with cognitive ability testing. You'll see that that's the highest score available on this table with 0.65 correlation. So let's cut to the chase and look at the results to see whether men or women do more bad stuff at work. In looking at these figures, you need to understand that they're a summary of a range of different counterproductive work behaviours. They're in effect a scale score of interpersonal and organisational counterproductive work behaviours. It's also important to understand that the majority of employees don't do much of this stuff, but some aspects, like for instance ignoring and snubbing other people, do get quite high, up to 40 or 50% of the population, so that's not inconsequential. And you'll see that the sample here is very significant. It's a sample of 2,049 people. Gender non-binary was not reported because the numbers were very small, mainly in Australia and New Zealand, but a number of participants beyond. And what you see here is the total counterproductive work behaviour scale was not statistically significantly different. So that means in total you can't say that men or women do more of this bad stuff at work. When we look into the more nuanced story, you see that there is a difference. And the difference is that men are much more likely to undertake interpersonal counterproductive work behaviours, which means that men are much more likely to bully or harass or to ignore or to snub people, whereas women are much more likely to undertake organisational counterproductive work behaviours. So let's look at this in comparison with age, and what we see is that total counterproductive work behaviours, men start off higher than women and it declines reasonably markedly over time, but you'll see that women tend to start off low in counterproductive work behaviours. They have this peak around 31 to 40 years of age and then it declines again. What's going on in the 31 to 40 years? I've discussed this with a range of researchers, and the consensus seems to be that this is the time when women are juggling home and work responsibilities concurrently. Interesting to see that men don't seem to have a similar peak, so maybe that says something about the degree to which men are involved in parenting. But in short, we know that people, when they're under a lot of pressure, tend to do more bad stuff. So maybe that's the explanation. Interpersonal counterproductive work behaviours, you see that men remain higher than women at all ages and stages. And in terms of organisational counterproductive work behaviours, once more women remain higher in terms of counterproductive work behaviours against the organisation, although there is nearly a convergence at the 41 to 50 years level. So who's more evil at work? Well, in fact, neither. But there is a difference. Men more likely to do bad stuff to people, women more likely to do bad stuff to the organisation. So why is it though? Well, in fact, I think the most likely explanation of this is the things versus people hypothesis. And you see a bunch of studies here which relate to the things versus people hypothesis. Things versus people hypothesis is really an observation from research that men tend to express much more interest in equipment, organisations, kind of objective things, if you want to put it that way, whereas women tend to focus much more strongly on interpersonal relationships, nurturing, kindness, those kinds of things. And in fact, if you look at the research that has been conducted in this area, the difference isn't minor. I mean, in very large samples, they're getting a complete standard deviation difference. If you're into stats, you know that that's a big difference for big populations. And so there does seem to be this focus of men being much more interested in things and women being much more interested in people. Now, if you look at the counterproductive work behaviours, women are way less likely to do bad things to human beings, suggesting the people orientation. Men, less likely to do something bad to the thing, the organisation, or to the rules or whatever. So that's interesting. All of this can be measured on the way in. So you can measure people's likelihood of undertaking counterproductive work behaviours generally, and as you saw from the league ladder of recruitment predictiveness, it does predict work performance. If you'd like a free trial of psych testing, use the QR code that I'm showing you now.